Transformative Principal, Episode 70, with Brad Gustafson. Today, Transformative Principal is sponsored by Simple School Sites. Go to jethrojones.com/simple school sites to sign up to have your mediocre website transformed into something amazing and beautiful. I've been doing this podcast for over a year and a half, and I have learned so much from it. This has been like another master's course in educational leadership, only way more effective for me personally. So what I'd like to do is figure out what things you really need to help you be the best principal that you can be. In the show notes today, I have a little survey that asks, what is the biggest thing that you are struggling with right now? If you could take a minute and fill that out, I'm going to read every single answer, and I want to be able to find guests that are going to be able to meet the needs that you are saying you have. So please take a minute, look at the show notes at transformativeprincipal.com, and fill out that survey and help me help you. I am super excited to follow up and continue my conversation with Brad Gustafson in this episode of Transformative Principal. Thank you so much for downloading and listening to it. We're going to talk about the great things he does with his teachers in this episode, and we're talking about professional development, about failure, about how teachers do great things, and it is just inspiring. I learn so much every time I hear Brad talk, and I know you're going to learn a lot too. Thanks for listening. So what I'd like to do now is change gears just a little bit and talk about some of the things that you do with the teachers that are a little bit different than what most schools probably do. First, let's talk about, you mentioned the optional professional development. Talk to me about that and share, what that looks like and how you plan that out.
All right, it's evolved over the past 5 years. Basically, philosophically speaking, and the truth of the matter is, every school has amazingly talented teachers. Traditionally, this is my observation now, teachers are very humble, and they may not recognize how great they are or how transformative they are. In recognizing that, if you and I are in classrooms more than teachers are in their colleagues' classrooms. They often don't get to see how great their colleagues are and the different passions they have. So myself, having been in these rooms and then kind of seeing how we did professional development when I came, what we've tried to do is work together and give staff a chance to lead and facilitate conversations that are important to them, not just me. And they have done that, and they've done it very well. So in a nutshell, it started where we'd invite teachers in, and we had a series of sessions where staff could choose, do I want to go learn about makerspaces, or do I want to learn about flipped instruction, and who do I want to learn from, and how do I want to learn? And we've integrated some flipped PD into that from time to time in a purposeful manner. We don't do it every single time, but if it benefits the conversation, we will. So we've sometimes we try things and they work really, really well, and sometimes they don't. I'll give you an example. Last year, we had a series, and I forget the topic, but we had some Moodle forums, so some back channeling and responses. We had some research where people dove into that, and it was and I planned that session, so go figure that one didn't go so well. But in a nutshell, I was reminded, if something is process heavy, meaning complex and how we're going to interact with it, then the content should be a little lighter, right? Mm-hmm. And the opposite is true. If the content is very, very heavy and deep, make the entry points a little easier for people so they're not overwhelmed. And I think we were talking actually about cultural proficiency and some really important conversations about affirming kids and making sure each and every student belongs with regard to race and identity and things like that. So it makes sense. And what we did is we monitored and adjusted. And some people were fine. You could picture your early adopters on staff, and they were able to handle some of the forum work, no problem. But we have other people equally as thoughtful and caring with regard to culture and relationships. And some of the Moodle stuff was hard. So here we have this deep content area for PD that they selected, and then a hard entry point. So we ended up just doing a face-to-face session for people just to say, okay, don't worry about the flipped part or the online asynchronous collaboration. There's a place for you, and this is important stuff. So we try to respond to feedback when it doesn't work. But in the end, where we, fast forward to today, Jethro, the way that we try to do it is we have a monthly theme so people can identify what is it I'm learning, whether it's meaningful technology integration or focused on achievement and so on and so forth. And then we try to have 2 or 3 choices that are all staff driven. So last spring, we had an empowered Moodle forum where and we did this together. We just brainstormed. What do we want to learn? What matters to us next year? And then we plan the PD for the year based on that and make adjustments as need be. So right now, next month, you'd be able to attend 1 of 3 sessions, depending on what your needs are. And then we'll repeat the process for next year.
So you have that calendar laid out for the whole year, right?
Yes.
So you put a lot of thought into this before the school year starts. You talk to your teachers before the school year starts. Why do you not let it be more organic? You intentionally chose to plan it out for the whole year. Why did you intentionally choose that?
Yep, we could, that's a personal decision. I wanted to have a structure so a predictable calendar so they know what their learning opportunities are going to be at school. So if they want to branch out and realize, and I'm also interested in this, well, then maybe they can hit up an ed camp or do something like that. Also, it gives people an opportunity to make adjustments. So this calendar or this that's posted, and I have it on my blog, by the way, in case people, here I am motioning with my hands, but no one can see my hands. But basically, we have made several changes over the course of this year even, whether it's someone saying, I thought I'd be ready to present on project-based learning, but I'm realizing I want to learn a little bit more before I'm comfortable doing that, or someone else saying, hey, there's this math workshop model that's emerging. I think our colleagues are going to be interested in this. I wouldn't mind facilitating a session, or however those conversations take place. Sometimes it's me reaching out saying after the year starts, like, wow, would you be interested in doing this? And then often the answer is yes. So it is organic and it's structured. One thing this is new this year, these sessions are optional. So to truly make it personalized, it's based on staff input, but they don't even have to go. Now, that's not something that's widely known. I mean, it's written on the flyer, but people are still, I think, trying to figure it out because it's so non-traditional. Like, what do you mean? You're having a meeting and I don't have to go? It's like, yeah, you don't have to go. That's the standard we want to hold ourselves to. And the PD, I'm speaking on behalf of our school and our PD chairperson and the PD team, but we want to plan things that are so responsive to teachers' needs that they choose to go, that they're not mandated to go. Now, one of the things that we're trying to tackle here is people can't skip the focus on high achievement and helping each and every child succeed. So that it's not optional to interact or engage with our school goal, but how you do that is personalized, and that's optional. So if for example, last month we had someone who had another commitment during the PD time, and she said, can I do this? And I said, absolutely, you can do this. So don't worry about not showing up. You don't have to be apologetic. You're a professional. Just let me know how you're going to interact with that. And I even gave her an idea. There's this Twitter chat that would hit the nail on the head, just so you know. And she was pretty excited about that. So that's the direction we're going. It's definitely a work in progress. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm excited by how we're trying to model kind of what we want for our students too.
Yeah. So the option is how you learn about the specific topic that is the theme for that month, right? And
correct.
The required part is that you do some sort of professional development, right?
You got it. So if you said, let's just say for whatever reason, maybe you had a family commitment, or maybe you just didn't want to go to a math workshop or a literacy intervention PD session, you could just let myself or a member of the PD team know and say, I'm not going to be there this month. I will be reading this book or attending this study class or participating in this Twitter chat for an hour on this very same topic. And we'd be like, okay, now that's new territory for us. I mean, we've most people do attend because traditionally that was the status quo. We're just kind of I'm almost piloting this new approach, I would say, or introducing
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah. So then the question for principals who's our audience here is how do you make sure that people are still getting the professional development that they need if they're not getting it through you? And I want you to talk about how you trust your teachers to do that.
Well, two things. So, if you've ever heard Todd Whitaker speak, he talks about make decisions based on your all-star teachers, and we have our school is packed with them, so that's very
Mm-hmm.
easy, and it's always at the forefront of my thinking. So it's not a gotcha mentality, like, oh my God, how am I going to make sure, you, you know, I try to look at it from that positive standpoint. Again, it's very easy to do around here. If
Mm-hmm.
someone doesn't show up to what we're planning, I hope I'm not so pompous to think that what our team and what I'm helping plan are better than anything else out there. I mean, I like to think we're doing a really good job, but if someone has something that they're seeing value in or they're passionate about, and it fits in and can at least make sure they're on this shared collective journey with us in those areas, then do it up. Amen. This is empowered learning, and it's different than the way things were when I was in the classroom, and I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, I think so too. And there's a lot of trust that you have for your teachers there. And one thing that I'm learning from interviewing so many principals is that really successful principals have high levels of trust for their teachers. And that was evident when I was talking to you when I was there visiting. It was evident in how you interacted with your teachers and how you interacted with the PTA and with the students. There were high levels of trust there. What's your advice to someone who is starting new someplace compared to where you're at 5 years in at the same place? How do you build and develop that trust as time goes on? And how do you short circuit that and get there faster?
But I would say transparency. So there are times, Jethro, where I fail and I don't try to hide it. Something will blow up in my face or be, whether it's kind of the story I told you about the asynchronous
Mm-hmm.
learning forum. And then teachers, I try when they do come to me and give feedback, I really try to embrace it and have that inform my thinking. So if someone says this asynchronous Moodle stuff is hard, Brad, I don't say, we'll figure it out. Or, I really do listen and respond and check in with people. So having that open, transparent dialogue, having a culture where it really, truly is okay to fail, that I think is one of the biggest things that helps cultivate some different innovative and things that are really good for kids and staff learning. I'll give you an example of that, and this is based on the advice to just have a conversation with your principal. And principals have conversations with your teachers about what they want, what they need. Um, we had a teacher come in here, this was several months ago now, and say, we should do a professional development session on in the theme of Top Chef or Chopped. Have you ever seen those cooking shows?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. And initially I was like, okay. And I thought, he's pretty excited about this, and he's a super smart guy, like 10 times smarter than I am. I should listen. So I listened, and I'm like, you know what? This fits with some of the feedback I have from teachers where they are looking for collaborative cross grade level time to reflect and process and go deeper into some of our learning.
Mm-hmm.
So over the last 3 months, we are forming this thing. I think we're taking a risk here, Jethro, because this could be the worst idea ever, or it could be the greatest idea ever. But what we're going to do now, and this is, I'm sharing on behalf of our school. Again, we have teachers taking the lead on this, but we're going to have a collaborative time set. We're going to flip it so teachers know what's happening going in. A 2-minute video just saying, come ready to reflect on how you've interacted with the 3 school goals. And then when they get there, we'll have a very short icebreaker. We're calling that the appetizer in sticking with the culinary theme. The main course will be a deeper reflection on a recipe for personalized professional development, how they've interacted this year, what they need next year, similar to how we did it this past year. We'll take that and respond. And then the dessert, quote unquote, the tail end of this will be people will actually be served food that are contestants are cooking in the backdrop the whole time. We're going to try to have a famous chef come in. We're going to try to have one or two staff members. I believe I might be doing some cooking, but we'll have in the theme of Chopped some mystery basket ingredients, and we'll cook. And then for dessert, teachers will come up with an analogy for professional development that ties into the dessert that's served. So they're internalizing it. I think it's going to be fun, engaging, and tasty, and we'll see what happens. It was a staff member's idea, and teachers are running with it. I've never heard of anything like it. So again, it could not go so well, but I think that's the culture that we have here, because often when people are really purposeful and think things through, typically they do go pretty well for kids. So we're trying to model that on the PD team too.
Yeah, and another thing that Todd Whitaker says, I think it's Todd Whitaker. Whoever says it, it's awesome. When the principal sneezes, then the whole school gets a cold, right? You know that quote? Mm-hmm. So you're doing something to help teachers feel comfortable coming to you with these ideas, and you're letting them run with them. And that's something that you are very humble and deflective and put a lot of credit on your teachers. And the reason they're doing that is because you allow them to do that in the first place. And I just want to make sure that people recognize that having seen you in action with your teachers and how you interact with them, it's pretty inspiring. And teachers with a leader like you would feel very comfortable doing this. And the hard part to nail down is, what does that really mean, and what does that really look like for someone who is a principal themselves and doesn't feel like they have that? What are some of the things that you do to show your teachers that you trust them? And I'll start by I'll give you one thing that I saw is that when I was there, you were running around your school, checking in on teachers, talking with them about anything that they, needed to bring up. You had tasks, but then they also had things they wanted to ask you. And you were actively engaged in working with them, communicating, being open with them, for the whole time that I was there. And what are some of the other things that you do to encourage and support that kind of open communication and come to me with your ideas kind of thing?
Yeah, well, a couple things. So to clarify, I tend to believe that teachers will do an amazing job for kids regardless of my approach. And here's what I mean by that. It's either going to be transparent and celebrated, or it's going to happen behind closed doors. So I don't want to be as, let's be honest here. This isn't really about me,
right?
But thank you for saying that. So my goal is to really have the doors be wide open and us sharing some of these best practices and ideas, and then learning from things that we would refine too. So I think before I came here, we have the same. Well, we've obviously hired some new teachers too, but the people have always done great things. We're just trying to acknowledge it and spread it and share and celebrate the differences too. Second of all, resource allocation principals have a lot of power, or we have the ability to support with finances, maybe even more so than teachers recognize. So we've carved out some money at the beginning of this year for mobile makerspaces, and basically it was a line item in the budget for innovation. That's tangible, real support that can really jumpstart a school or a teacher's idea. Also in the form of kind of PLN support or resources with regard to either research or tangible conversation. So if someone comes to me and says, "Oh, I'm stuck on augmented reality. I've been trying. I can say, "Okay, I can help. And I know Charles Cooper in Texas, and I know Terry Eicholtz in Texas, and I know Brad Wade and Drew Minock, and we will get you connected. And the folks at Erasmus or Daiquiri have a great support team." So that's another way, just leveraging the PLN and kind of going on that journey together. And then I think the last thing for me, and this is true of all principals, just taking a genuine interest in what they're doing and having, asking questions. And sometimes our staff will share, we have a school hashtag on Twitter. It's GW, stands for Greenwood, GW Greats. And sometimes staff will share cool things, and I'll ask questions too. I won't, although sometimes I do say awesome or no way, that's amazing, but I'll say, how did students respond, so that they have a chance to share a little bit more about that. So that's the trifecta there.
Yeah, well, I think that's awesome. So one last thing that I want to talk to you about is your flexible parent-teacher conferences. And this was brand new to me, and I thought that it was amazing. So talk about what that looks like, and how you do that, and how it serves your school and community better.
All right. So the concept is partnering with parents and having those child-centric conversations that are really critical, and getting each and every family in, not stopping at 90%, not stopping at 95%, but 100%. And that's what our teachers have been able to achieve, 100% conference attendance. How do they do it? Well, instead of having 3 conference dates or 2 conference days and then a flex date, they custom schedule conferences with each and every family. And in some cases, that means they're conferencing for a month. But the feedback from parents and staff has been really impactful. Instead of having that factory model where you have 15-minute, 20-minute conferences and you get 8 or 10 done in a night, and by the end you can barely remember who you're conferencing with or what you've said already and what you haven't. They might schedule 2 or 3 a night. They might do one before school. They might stick around until 7 p.m. just for one family. There might be a family on vacation, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone's busy, and families are no different. So that's how our staff has approached that. The challenge is, but this is a challenge that I think every single school has with our specialists, via music, art. I've been in other schools, and specialists, it's still hard. Families don't typically attend those conferences at the same rate they do homeroom teachers. And the same is true with flex conferencing. And you can imagine it adds some layers of difficulty, because if you're a FIAD teacher and teachers across the school are conferencing at a bazillion different times, it's going to be probably even more challenging for you to maybe meet with one person. So that was actually circling back to the Passport to Passion night. We piloted that this year. One of the goals was to engage with parents, get them talking to our specialists. And again, that was an absolute home run. We did it with just 3rd and 4th grade this year. As I was circulating around, and actually we had clipboards too. We asked people to sign in just to kind of have a sense of who came and how many. And I haven't counted yet. I started counting, Jethro, but I'm going to estimate hundreds. I'm going to estimate more than 200 people came, and that's just 3rd and 4th grade. So that, back to the flex conferencing thing, that's I think been the missing piece. And I think it's a missing piece regardless of how you do conferences, just making sure all staff are kind of celebrated and accessible to families.
Yeah. So I think that's really amazing. The thing that was really cool in the staff meeting that I attended with you was somebody mentioned that some other school in the district wanted your school to go back to the traditional way of doing conferences. And there was very much an uproar among your teachers of, no, this is the way we need to do it, because this is how we communicate with all of our families in a positive and productive way. And at the same time, teachers were saying this is a lot harder. There's a lot more time and effort that goes into this. We're definitely doing more than the, compensatory 8 hours or however long it is in the contract. But we do this because it's what's best for kids. And it was cool to see that and see them get fired up about having something really positive possibly taken away. And, I don't know if the conversation really was about taking it away or not, but somebody mentioned that every year they say, should Greenwood still be doing these flexible conferences? And the whole staff was like, yes, we need them. They're wonderful. And it was just really cool to see your teachers be so excited about doing extra work and working longer, and because they really cared about the kids and cared about the families of the kids, and having 100% participation in those conferences, which was totally inspiring.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's the feeling I get like on a daily basis here. They hold themselves to a very, very high standard. And let's be really honest, if in this age of data-driven decision making, Jethro, can you really argue against 100% attendance at parent conferences? I don't think I can.
Yeah, you certainly can't. So it's pretty awesome. So the last question I ask is, what is one thing that someone can start doing today to be a transformative principal like you?
Start doing today. I would say, so I recently finished my dissertation, and one of the findings that emerged, and by the way, I interviewed the most innovative elementary principals across this great country. And the overarching theme was invest in digital connections to extend your learning. And one of the tools that was frequently mentioned was Twitter, although it doesn't have to be Twitter. So I would say if you want to be a transformative principal, get more involved and invest in this digital connected ecosystem and transition away from kind of the traditional silo approach. I shouldn't say hang up the phone, but just broaden your reach and your PLN. And if you have questions about how to do that, I'm happy to help. There are principals across this country that are excited to share ideas that are working well in their schools and very eager to learn best practices that are happening in other schools. At a very base level, this is a quote that I said. It's like the one thing that I've ever said that's actually made sense and resonated. But it's educational malpractice to limit student opportunity based on what we refuse to learn. Okay, so basically perpetuating the status quo is not doing our kids right. We have to be in the mix and learning, and I think the most profound and efficient and inspiring and powerful way is to invest in digital connections. And Twitter is one option, one way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. How can people connect with you, especially on Twitter?
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is @Gustafson Brad. I have a blog that's called Adjusting Course, and the name is, if you actually have to think about it a little bit, it's literally like changing the way education is done and responding to our students' needs, and those are two ways. And then I'd be able to, if someone did reach out, be able to share some other people that I love learning from too. So.
Great. And you also have a podcast, 30 Second Take. Do you want to talk a little bit about that too?
Oh, sure. Cool. Thanks. So the podcast, the premise is people are busy. So we have a podcast that's typically 5 minutes or less because it's, unless there's like a special, we have a March Madness one going that's just been insanely awesome. And we had 16 people on, but wow. Everyone gives their take on a guiding question in education, but they only get 30 seconds to do that. And it's kind of a PLN builder, so you have a chance to hear directly from some people you maybe haven't heard of, some people you definitely have heard of in 30 seconds or less, and we try to make it fun. We've gamified it a little bit where we have the audience vote on which guest host will come back next week to take on a different guiding question. So typically the setup, and we want to get you on too, Jethro, by the way, but the setup might be like me, or actually it wouldn't be me because I host the thing, but it'd be me going against you. We'd both get the same guiding question. We'd have 30 seconds to respond to, the best way to innovate in education or, whatever the question is. You'd give your take, I'd give mine. And then people vote on Twitter at hashtag 30secondtake and just say, when Jethro said this, it really resonated. I vote for him. And then if you had more votes than me, you'd come back the next week to host the next, or guest host the next guiding question. We also have used a Google form for voting too, and people are like emailing and voxing because they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but yet they want to be involved in the.
Right. That's cool. So answering a deep educational question in 30 seconds is difficult, and you've given me the question that I need to answer, and I am struggling to succinctly say it in 30 seconds. Yep. So that's why I've delayed in getting my response back to you, is that I don't know how to limit it to 30 seconds. So I'm still working on it. I'm gonna get it done, and it's gonna be hopefully awesome, and I'll destroy whoever my competition is.
Oh, I like that. My word. I love it. So yeah, sometimes people use analogies or visuals to help further the story, but the intent isn't that that's like the final end of the conversation. Really, the goal is that that's the beginning of the
Exactly.
conversation. And it's very digestible to, typically the podcasts are only 3 to 4 minutes. And, I don't know about you, but I do have 3 or 4 minutes. I might not have 2 hours, but I do have 3 or 4 minutes to extend my learning and meet someone new.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Brad. This has been awesome. And I personally have learned so much from you and am just honored to be able to call you a friend and a colleague. And I appreciate your time today. So thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me, and I can't thank you again enough for coming out to our school and giving me feedback, helping me reflect. I loved it, Jethro.
All right. Thank you so much for downloading and listening to this podcast. Please subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher, and please feel free to give us a rating on Stitcher Radio or on iTunes so that we can help spread the word about how much we're learning in this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can find me on Twitter @Jethro Jones.